And welcome to this episode of the Capitalized Life and Retirement Show. I'm your host, Matthew Johnson, president and owner of Johnson Wealth and Income Management, a retirement income source located in Clear Lake, Humboldt, and Ankeny, Iowa. Hope you're doing well, taking a little bit of time for yourself, and welcome to today's program. Now, I want to just give you a little bit of insight. Today's program is not going to be dealing with those of you that are near retirement or actually in retirement. In fact, what we're going to do today is we're going to have a conversation directly to those that are quite a ways away from retirement. Maybe these are individuals that are in their 20s or 30s. They could be in their 40s, but nevertheless, maybe they're struggling in just prioritizing, figuring out how to save for retirement. Today, I think that this is a valid and a discussion that needs to be had. And the reality is that so many of you as clients have expressed to me your concern about your children, about your grandchildren. And so maybe this is a video, this is a podcast that you can pass on to them, and hopefully it is inspirational. Hopefully it gets them moving in a good sense of direction, gives them that kind of motivation to be able to start to address the mastery of money. If you're brand new to this program, not only do I want to say welcome, I encourage you, take a look around. Go to our website, johnsonwim.com, where there's a wealth of information. There's videos and there's podcasts. There's past radio shows. There's white papers to be able to educate yourself on financially relevant topics. There is nothing more important in today's world as we live in a very changing world, a very rapidly growing world, to be as prepared as possible for retirement. After all, generations are living longer than ever before, and whatever bucket of money you've saved, you've now got to make that last. So, my friends, this is an opportunity for you to not only be able to dig in and see what does it really take for success in retirement, but it gives you an opportunity to be able to pass it on to your friends as well. I also encourage you to pick up a copy of my book, The Capitalized Retirement, something that's available at all major book resellers for a reasonable price. And when you get done marking it up and underlining and circling it and starting to apply it to your life, I encourage you, pay it forward. Give that book away to a friend. So, back to our topic at hand. What if you're a child? What if you're a grandchild? What if you've never really felt as though you've had the opportunity, you've never had the guidance, you've never had really the means to be able to save for retirement? Maybe you're a young person and you're just starting a family. Maybe not. Maybe you're just a young person and you're just kind of trying to figure out life as you go. Well, the reality is that, number one, I want you to understand there's going to be 7 steps that we're going to be laying out, but not even a step, just an overall overreaching theme that I want you to be aware of is that you do not have time. You do not have time. You may think you do. You may think, oh, I've got 30, 40, 50 years before I get there. You do not. You do not. If there is only one thing that I can say is spoken time and time and time again by older generations, and you know what, I'm guilty of saying it, I'm now in my 50s, the reality is that time does move fast. And before you know it, you are there. Before you know it, you have already arrived. And now it could be too late to really begin saving and accumulating. So the sooner you can start developing the mastery of money, my friend, the better and the more accumulated and more knowledgeable you will be in how to handle money, how to make money do what it's supposed to do for you. So let's just kind of take a look at that 20-something-year-old, and whether you got a family, whether you don't, I think that all of these 7 steps are going to be very applicable, but I want to speak specifically to those that are going to be married or that you're looking to be married. Number one, they say that the number one argument amongst marriages is the argument about money. And I would have to say that that is probably true. As a financial advisor, as a fiduciary, I see so many couples that are not aligned at all with respect to money. And when it comes to money, the money coming into the home, regardless of who's making it and how much, I think it has to be an aligned front. I think both of you need to have a very strong respect for money and for what money can do. And the reality is that if you cannot agree about money, it is likely to be a very contentious life for the rest of your lives. You know, Dave Ramsey, I heard him once say that there always seems to be the geek or the nerd and then the free spirit. In other words, there's always the person who's the spender, and there's always one that's more thrifty and more money conscious. And I suppose that that's true. But the reality is that you don't necessarily have to stop your behavior. You don't necessarily have to be someone totally different. But I want the both of you to have a healthy respect for money and what you're going to do with the money. Because money is power. Money is momentum. Money is freedom and independence and things of that nature. And the reality is that you need to be able to master money. And if you're going to be living with another person, especially when that other person is also making money, there is also another source of income and stream of income coming in. I'm going to suggest to you there is nothing more important than for you to be both philosophically aligned with that money, what to do with it, how to handle it. Now, number 2 is going to be one that could be somewhat painful. But the sooner you start, the sooner you get going on this, I'm going to guarantee you it is going to pay you dividends. And that is get a budget, work the budget, stick to the budget. Get a budget, work the budget, stick to the budget. What do I mean by that? Well, number one, the word budget is awfully scary to a lot of people, and that's primarily because they have very little control on their money. They have very little knowledge of where their money is coming in, where it's coming from, where it's going to, how much, how often. It's kind of like birds in a tree. They're just flocking and nesting everywhere, and you have no idea how many there are. And today, I'm going to suggest that the world and technology has made it more easy for you to be able to spend money and to set things up for automatic renewal, and it's going to steal your money, guaranteed. So having a budget, working the budget, meaning making tweaks and adjustments to that budget as information comes in, going back to the budget and taking and modifying it if necessary, and then working that budget, sticking to it. My friend, that's going to be one of the best financial gifts that you ever gave yourself. And this is something that I see so many adults, they wait until they're 50 or 60 to implement a budget. And the reality is that if you would just do it in your 20s or 30s, when you're younger, when life is maybe a little bit simpler, well, by the time you make it to retirement age, you will have already grown accustomed to living on and within your means. And that is one of the biggest keys to retirement success that I see as a financial advisor. Number three is not very exciting. It's something that does not really have a lot of sizzle to it, but it is absolutely necessary, especially for younger individuals, married individuals that are married with children. And if you're a single parent, this is even more important. Now, you may not feel like you have this in the budget, but this is something that I would encourage most every single person to have. And what is it? It's a life insurance. Step 3 is having adequate life insurance. Now, this is a conversation that I'm going to have with couples, especially with today's world and the inflation of cost of living, the inflation of housing expenses, and owning a vehicle, buying a vehicle is absolutely insane compared to what it was 30 years ago. And I can tell you that it takes more money to live today than it ever has. And I think adults are not they're not ignorant to this. They see you as young people and they feel sorry for you, and they wish that it was easier on you. But the reality is that it costs what it costs, and unless you want to continue to pay rent and never have equity, well, buying a home and trying to buy a home that is within the means that you have for income and something that you can budget around, it's going to be one of the best investments that you can make. Now, the reality is that, however, that's probably going to require debt. And what is debt? Remember, the debt is very different than credit. Credit is borrowing another person's money when you already have the money. But oftentimes in a young person's life, you don't have much saved for retirement. You don't have much saved for assets. And so as a result, it does require you to get a mortgage. So you are indeed going into debt. Now, if you have a wife that is dependent upon you, if you have a spouse that's dependent upon you, you have children, it is going to be very important to have life insurance, adequate life insurance that is going to provide an opportunity for the surviving spouse and children to be okay. In other words, if you have a $300,000 mortgage, having, $500,000 of life insurance, that may be a little bit more than what you need, but it could be argued that it would be just perfect. Because the reality is that we want to be able to pay off the mortgage, if at all possible, if you pass away, so that your family has a place, a dwelling to live and to be able to stay in that dwelling without having to make mortgage payments. And a little extra left over to be able to bury you, a little extra to be able to put towards college expenses, a little extra to be able to give that surviving spouse a leg up and an opportunity to be able to figure out how to move on from that point. Men approach life insurance very differently than women. Women want to feel safe. Men, we're very that's enough, that's sufficient. And I agree. We want to do what we need as far as life insurance. We don't need to be oversold life insurance. We don't need to be overpaying for life insurance. Term life insurance is perfectly adequate when we're younger and we've got a mortgage and we've got debt to pay off. But the reality is that oftentimes men don't buy enough. They don't buy a long enough term. And so I'll get off my soapbox here in a moment, but the comment I have for you is buy a little more than what you think you need and buy it for a longer period of time than what you think you need it for. So if you have a mortgage that's only 20 years long, but you get a 30-year life insurance policy, perfect. Because, I've never seen a surviving spouse say, that's too much money, take it away. I've never seen a grieving spouse say that. So the reality is that having adequate life insurance and, by the way, making certain that it's on both of you is absolutely necessary. Number 4, and the rest of these are going to be very, very fast. If you stink at saving, if you have not really started the saving game, the reality is that it couldn't be easier. In today's world with employers and with employer retirement programs, the reality is that you can very easily save for retirement. And I'm going to encourage you, go into HR and sign up for payroll deduction. Out of sight, out of mind. Making contributions to a 401k, a 403b, something that's going to be employer produced, employer offered, a simple IRA, making certain that that money is coming out of your check pre-tax is going to be absolutely essential and vital. It's going to give you an opportunity of being able to save without really thinking about it. I know what you're thinking already. You're probably saying to yourself, there's no way that I can live on less. My friend, I'm going to guarantee you that you can live on less. It may not be pleasant up front, but you can live on less. And the reality is that if you had to start out at 2% or 3% of your paycheck, you will eventually acquiesce to living on 3% less income. And then I encourage you year by year, every year that goes by, you increase by 1% the amount that you are contributing into your retirement program. Now, let's say that you work for, say you're working as a subcontractor and you're like, I don't have an employer that's got a 401k that's going to afford me the opportunity of being able to do that. Well, my friend, you are still not without excuse, because the reality is that any custodian, Fidelity, Vanguard, whoever you would look at, they have the opportunity of being able to do what's called monthly ACHs. That's automatic clearinghouse. That's just where you turn your savings into essentially a deduction, just like an automatic bill pay. So if you have, say, apartment rent that is due, on, say, the 10th of every month, well, you could set an ACH up so that it drafts out of your bank account your contribution to your Roth IRA or your traditional IRA on the 20th of every month. It's just like a bill, but it gives you a requirement. It forces you to be able to save. And the reality is that sometimes we all need a little forcing in order to be able to do what's right for us. Now, once that money comes in, what do we do with it? Well, this is where I encourage you get professional help. Now, not all professional help, believe it or not, costs anything. I have a kind of a standing agreement with all of my clients that if they ever have friends or if they have family that want to be able to have a conversation with me about their situation financially, how to save, what to save in, are they doing things the right way? My goal is not to make them a client. My goal is to help them. And as a fiduciary, let's say that you're on the younger end. Remember, I'm only working with people that are 55 and over, but let's say you don't make the cut, you're 40 years of age, but you still need a little bit of guidance. Listen, there are plenty of us out there as financial advisors who are happy to have a conversation and give you that piece of information that's so necessary up front. In order to be able to get a good start. And the reality is that though there is a plethora of things that we can invest in, I encourage you, really, there are so many better alternatives, in my opinion, than mutual funds. Things like index funds are a thing of beauty. They're very extremely low cost. They give you the opportunity to invest in the market so that you're not underperforming the market. And they're designed for growth. And as long as you apply, step number 6, which I think is important, and that is check in periodically. Make certain that there's accountability. Set it and forget it can be a great thing. It really can, especially if you're doing something like maybe the S&P 500. But as your money continues to grow and compound and you have more of it, you don't want to simply be focusing only on the S&P 500. There are many other things out there that are going to be complementary to what you're doing with the S&P. And so the reality is that I think it's important to have accountability. It's important to check in with that financial professional if you possibly can, and be able to just have that conversation to say, am I doing things in the right way? Am I going in the right direction? Am I missing something? Is there something that I'm just not seeing that maybe I could be doing to go just a little bit more efficiently, a little bit better for growth and for compounding? Number 7, and 7 is going to be the last one. Here's the thing. I want you to be encouraged that thinking about saving for retirement is long-term thinking. It is not what's happening in the market today, what's happening in the market tomorrow, what happened in the market yesterday. It is thinking long-term. And the reality is that we can all get distracted by the news and the headlines. There's all sorts of things out there that are scary, things that can create a lot of ripple effects within the market and within the things that we invest in. But the reality is that dollar cost averaging, which is where we're buying at the same time every month or every 2 weeks or every week, whatever it is, but we're buying at different price intervals. All throughout the course of your savings or accumulation period, that dollar cost averaging is going to work to your benefit. And if you get wrapped up in all of the day-to-day, you get wrapped up in all of the news and the headlines and the fear-mongering and all of the things that we can see from day to day, it's going to take your eye off the prize. Your eye is to be on age 65 or whatever age you want to retire at. If you want to retire early at 60, great. You want to retire at 70, great. But whatever that prize is, that is your focus. That is your goal. And the reality is, my friends, you're going to have years that stink, years in which there is no growth, years that it's a severe decline, in fact, and it could even go on for multiple years, 2 or 3 years. But you know what? Those are some of the best years to be saving. And while everybody else is pulling back, everybody else is freaking out and they're taking their money and putting it in cash, everybody else is taking and pulling money out and using it to buy a new car. Well, you're sticking to your guns. You are sticking to the plan. You are focused on saving and saving frequently and saving often. If there's only one other thing that I can encourage you to implement, it is this: save the right kind of money. And what I mean by that is we all know that there's pre-tax money, we all know that there's post-tax money, and we all know that the very best kind of money is Roth money, Roth IRA money. Now, unfortunately, we are somewhat limited as to what we can save in Roth accounts, but maximize it. Maximize it. You're always going to, by default, have money that shows up in pre-tax, because that's what employers, when they do a match, they're going to put that money in pre-tax. So you do the opposite. You put money in post-tax into that tax-free Roth account, because when you get to retirement, who knows what life is going to be for you? Who knows what things you're going to want to do? Who knows what the cost of living will be? But I do know one thing: there will be no better feeling than to know that you have accumulated money that has no tax man attached to it. That is going to be tax-free fun there for sure. I'm Matthew Johnson. Hopefully this video was thought-provoking, encouraging to you. If you're a parent, you're a grandparent, you're watching this, I encourage you, share this with your young person, the person that you're concerned with, because they need all the encouragement that they can get. Today's world is more diverse and busy, and well, it's just so much more confusing than life in the past. And so I encourage you, share this with them and step alongside them. See what you can do to help better assist them. Get them the professional help that they deserve. I'm Matthew Johnson. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And remember, it's up to you to make today a great day.